Hi everyone, my name is Fiona and welcome to the session. It's how to get into good writing habits, postgraduate researchers. Okay, so my name is Fiona Philippi, my picture is on this slide, and I work for the Institute for Academic Development. Also on this session is Louise Mackay, who also works for the Institute for Academic Development. We're commonly known as IAD at the university. We're central level service, and we provide a large programme for postgraduate researchers in all types of personal and professional development, many workshops, resources, support. And so we hope that we kind of get to know you through your research degree at Edinburgh. So today, what I'm going to do is give a very quick overview of kind of things that you can think about now to get into good writing habits. Of course, there's a lot more out there. This is a very, very short session, so it's really just a taster of the kinds of things that maybe it would be helpful for you to start thinking about now and start doing now. And also to think about some of the sort of common challenges that we hear about a lot from postgraduate researchers, and some of the kind of tips and advice that you can think about to overcome these challenges, and also to highlight a little bit at the end just where further support at the university is located for helping with writing, and there is a lot of support out there. So yeah, why focus on writing? Well, writing is obviously a crucial part of any research degree, whether you're doing a research master's or whether you're doing a PhD. The end product that will get your degree is obviously a thesis. There's writing involved in the thesis, but there's also potentially journal papers, shorter policy papers potentially. There's all sorts of things that are part of a research degree. So it's absolutely vital part of it. But it's an important form of communication for many different reasons. If you are going to be writing funding grants, you're writing blog posts, you're doing public engagement, you're even writing emails to your supervisor, to other researchers. Writing is absolutely important. And the other thing about writing, and I think it's easy to forget sometimes, because if we've got a presentation to give, we'll think we have to practice. Writing is the same. I think people quite often think they're going to sit down and write something and that's it. But actually, an awful lot of writing needs many different iterations, and the only way to get better at this and more comfortable at it is to practice regularly. And writing for your research degree is no different. Yeah, so very common challenges, I think, that most people will be familiar with, and definitely come up a lot when we speak to postgraduate researchers. Procrastination, I think, is a really big one, of course, and just always thinking you've got this, what seems certainly like this huge piece of writing to do, and so you will find anything to do to not do it. So suddenly doing the laundry, cleaning your bathroom, etc., seems more attractive than actually sitting down and starting that piece of writing. And I think that's something that an awful lot of people are familiar with. A related, I suppose, is writer's block. I mean, some people really do experience this to a larger degree than others, that you just don't feel that you can get past the start, or you get to a certain place in your writing and you can't proceed from there. You find it impossible to see a way forward. So that's something that can be experienced, definitely. Um, a lot of people as well are not terribly sure about what's required of academic writing. This happens to postgraduate researchers quite a lot, partly because quite often people have taken a break from academia, so they may have done a master's degree and then come back to do either a research master's degree or a PhD. And in the time they haven't done any academic writing, and so it's a bit rusty, or you're not very sure about what's required. So that's a very common thing. And of course, there are many other reasons for not writing. You can probably think of lots, but not writing is a very common thing. So what kinds of things can you do now? So you're right at the beginning of your research degree. So these things about writing shouldn't be too much of a problem yet. But there are things that you can start to do right at the beginning that can help you overcome these challenges if you are likely to experience them later on. So one of the things that I would recommend is that you do identify any weaknesses that you might have with writing early on. So if you are so kind of take a almost step back from where you are, and if you are worried about how to do academic writing, or you are worried about how to reference correctly, or maybe you're just worried about things like sentence structure, grammar, things like that. This is a good time to try and address these things and to try and work on these things. There is absolutely nothing to be ashamed of, recognizing that these things, that you feel a bit worried about these things at the beginning. That's absolutely, there is support out there for that, and if you take steps to address, it will build confidence in writing later on. One of the things that some people find useful is to have something like a research journal. So either you can do it by hand or on a computer, that you have a file that you actually just write every day or very regularly about your research. And this is a kind of just log what you're thinking about or what you've read, what you've done. It doesn't need to be a huge piece of writing, and this actually relates to the next point, that you're writing for yourself. So this is quite a big block for some people sometimes, with writing, particularly academic writing, is that you have this feeling that anything that you write is going to go somewhere and be open for critique. One of the useful things is to actually think about writing for yourself, having writing that actually goes nowhere, that stays with you, but you are writing about your research. So if you can start to write every day, it doesn't need to be a long time. Put 10 minutes aside and see where you get to. But that makes writing much easier, and it makes it easier to get into a flow later on. And also with a research journal, something like that, you can go back to it a few months in and you'll realize you can see how your thinking has developed in that time, which can be very useful for writing reports, for presenting your research, etc. So there's lots of things that are beneficial about having a kind of research journal, however you do it. Yeah, trying out different styles of writing as well. Is speaking obviously about the sort of almost traditional academic writing, which of course is necessary for academic journals, um, and for theses, such like. But it can also be useful to try out different styles of writing. So try out writing a blog post about your research, or writing even something fictional about something, and actually trying these different styles of writing and playing around with them can help you with being able to express your ideas about your research as well. And the final point on this slide is understanding the expectations for bigger pieces of writing. So obviously during your research degree, you will have bigger pieces of writing that you'll have to submit. If, for example, if you're doing a PhD, you will definitely have a first year review. And at this point, you will probably be expected to submit a report. The report will vary in size depending on your discipline and things, but it's good to know what are the expectations for that. And that's something you can do right at the beginning. You can find out what is expected in your degree, what size of writing, what style of writing, and things like this, and even get hold of past pieces of writing and things. That means that you can start to take ownership of it and start to work towards it. Yes, I see there's a point about different styles of writing good for outreach opportunities that Matthew's put in there. That exactly, it really is crucial. And again, it's about the sort of practice makes perfect thing. You can try and it will become easier. I think that's it. I think with writing, it's one of the things that many people will put off until it's right up to the deadline, and that can then be very stressful and difficult to do. If you're in practice, it's easier. Okay, what I would like to highlight just now is that there are a lot of things via the IAD, the Institute for Academic Development. We have a whole suite of writing workshops, and that's those focus on, as I've said, the sort of real basics of grammar and punctuation, going back to that, to then looking at more specific elements of academic writing and things. We also have workshops on beating writer's block. So if that is something that you experience, then there is support out there. We also have workshops on publication, so writing for publication, and this will differ across different disciplines, the expectations on publication, but we do have a lot of workshops and resources about that can support publication. You'll see the next slide, we have other ones about blogging, policy briefs, writing the literature review. So again, different types of writing. Another thing that we do have on a weekly basis is a researcher writing hour. This is just an hour. This has changed obviously in these circumstances to being online. There's an hour that is just set aside for writing. So if you are struggling to find time to write, it's something that you can sign into and focus on writing for an hour. And researchers of all levels find this quite a useful exercise. We have an online guide as well that you can look up at any time. And there is another service at the university that I would highlight, has a lot of support for writing, and it's the English language education service. And that's if English is not your first language. They have a lot of study materials and workshops, particularly for postgraduate researchers as well. So again, worth a look on that. Thank you for listening, and you can find our contacts in this last slide here. So please do let us know if you have any further questions or you're looking for anything specific.